Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Heritage Middle School Click. Welcome this side of the room. With that, if you would, let's stand and have the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 4 is adoption of the agenda. If we could have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next is call to the public, and I do not have any forms for anybody, but is there anybody that is here that did not fill out a form? Going once. All right. Next, we're going to hold a public hearing regarding the instructional time model. This is an action item or a discussion item, but it's a public hearing, so I do need a motion to go into tonight's public hearing.
So moved.
Second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz?
So we had a snow day that we have to, right now we have to make that up. And so I was planning to come to the board today and after consulting with the Department of Education, ask us just to cancel that day, go to a 143-day calendar. We would still be well within the number of instructional hours that are required. So it's something that we've done this in the past, where if we have a snow day, we just come to the board, request that. Well, we've consulted with the Department of Ed, and they have changed their feeling on how this works for four-day school weeks. And really, it's in state law. There's, it's the difference between like an and an or type of situation where. And what they're saying is you can cancel a day of school if you are on a 5-day week, but it's not allowed if you're on a 4-day week. Even though we do the same number of instructional hours as a 5-day week, not because it wasn't meant to do that, it just wasn't written that way in statute. So it's being very literal, and if you know who the person is that's involved, and I know Ms. Daniels and Mr. Livingston know who that is, that doesn't surprise anybody. So we are going to have to make up the day, except this is a different way to solve the same problem. And so last year, because of COVID, the state legislature came up with what's called instructional time model. And this is a different way to have instruction that's not the traditional bottoms in seats type of deal. And it's really meant so that if there's a need, you can do hybrid instruction or home-based instruction through virtual instruction, that kind of thing. And so in order to do this, and I'll explain what this is in just a second, in order to do this, we have to have 2 public hearings. So we'll have a public hearing today. That's what we're doing now. We'll have another public hearing in April. And then on the April agenda, there'll be the request to approve the instructional time model.
So this is a no action.
No action. There's nothing else on the agenda that this is addressing. This is an opportunity for the public and the board to answer or ask questions and get answers, that kind of thing. So there's some documents in here, but the key points to an instructional time model, other than the number of hours that are required, it says instructional hours may be delivered in any day, week, and course length increments adopted by the ITM. Instructional hours may be delivered through any combination of direct instruction, project-based learning, independent learning, and mastery-based learning. And instructional hours may be defined to include any in-person instruction and remote instruction. Schools may reallocate minimum instructional time or hours required per course on a per student basis to allow students to spend more or less time as needed on an individual course. Instructional times and schedules may be staggered for students and courses, or other instructional time options may be offered on the weekends or on the evenings to allow students to not attend or complete school days or instructional time at the same time. And attendance policies must be aligned to reflect the instructional time and hour policies prescribed in the adopted ITM. So what we're proposing in order to meet the needs that we're talking about is to make up the snow day, is to use the instructional time model for April 18th, which is currently a non-instructional day that's already in the calendar. It's meant as a snow day makeup day, April 18th. It's a Monday. It's the Monday after Easter, and it's the day that we always tend to have off. So what we're proposing is to make it a project or assignment-based instruction where the kids would get an assignment the week prior, and they would have to complete it and turn it in on Tuesday. And so they work on it over the weekend, or they can work on it the week prior or whatever and make up that time. Their attendance on that Monday is determined by whether they completed the assignment or not. And so that's how we would make up the snow day instead of coming in person. That's what we're proposing, and using this instructional time model to do that. One thing that I told, we discussed this in the district leadership team meeting yesterday, is that we wanted, not right now, but over the summer when we have time and when it's not snowing, we want to come up with a plan on how to maybe do this for snow days in the future, where if we do have a snow day, we don't cancel school. It's just using the instructional time model to do a online school for that snow day, and then we don't have to make it up. But we would come up with a procedure on how to do that and train staff and train parents ahead of time and things like that. So then we wouldn't have to worry about this in the future by using the instructional time model to keep the instructional day in place. We're just delivering instruction in a different manner. Now, we know that there's going to be kids that don't have computers, that don't have the internet, things like that. But fortunately, we have some resources that, because of COVID and because of everything that's happening, we've gotten a significant amount of resources. We have Chromebooks that we can give to families that very few families have requested, even though the requests have gone out. We have some hotspots that we can give to families so that they can use the Chromebooks and along with the hotspot if they have service at their home, so that hopefully, granted, not everyone, we have people that live way off the grid that don't have cell phone service and it's just not going to work for them. But for a majority of our students, we should be able to provide some kind of internet access to them, either with their own devices or school district provided devices that they just take home and leave home. They don't even have to bring them back home.
Will the assignment affect their grade negatively?
My guidance is not to. This is more, and I heard a hump over there. That's.
It's more just a tracking system to be able to.
Yeah, it's more of a, I'd say it affects attendance, and it's more of a pass-fail type of situation for attendance. The other thing that I made clear is it would not impact perfect attendance.
Right.
So the perfect attendance is based on in-person instruction, and that would not affect, a student that was that important to them, and we'd have those, and that's a good thing. That this would, if they didn't take advantage of this opportunity to get that attendance in that day, it would not impact their perfect attendance if that's what they were.
Will each individual teacher have to keep track of the response for all the people in their classes?
Yes, because, they have to take attendance.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would be responsible for attendance. Now, what's going to have to happen, and this is kind of the back end administrative stuff, is the teacher cannot take attendance for Monday on Tuesday. So they can't report the attendance on Tuesday for what happened Monday. So there's going to have to be basically a list of those that are absent, that didn't complete that assignment, given to the attendance clerk at each school. They're going to work with Kathleen Little, who's our student data coordinator, and they'll work out the attendance side on that part. But that each teacher, and for middle school teachers, they're going to have 7 of those because they have 7 classes that they're going to have to take attendance for. That kind of thing.
Is there any reporting we need to do to the state, or can that all be done internally?
That's all done by our student data coordinator. So that'll just be, there's a form, and I think the form is in here, that the template that she will fill out. She will submit, she'll do the changes to our calendar, because right now it's a non-instructional day, a non-student day. That will change to a student day. And then But that's all handled by our student data portal.
So it'll all stay in-house.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
We don't report
No.
to an ADE. or
And
anything.
and to be honest, once you guys approve the instructional time model, which again will not happen until April, once it's approved, it doesn't have to be approved by the ADE. It's your approval is all it takes. It's us doing the back end work to make sure it's reporting correctly.
Okay, this was just a discussion item only.
Do you want to ask the audience if they have any questions?
Yeah. Audience, do you have any questions?
We have a whole slew of staff here, so I don't know if there's any questions about that, but you're working anyway. It's not a day off for staff, but it's because it's in-service day that day. We have an 8-hour in-service, so.
Please go ahead. Oops, sorry.
How many days are allowed for teachers to submit the absences or present? Because sometimes students say, well, I did it, but I don't have the work. Do we take their word for it? You know, how many days?
I think that's gonna be something that's gonna be decided on an individual school basis. So I don't wanna give an answer, but I think that the thing is, we don't wanna drag it out necessarily, so we want something to be timely, but at the same time, we know that we're dealing with kids. So I think that'll just be handled on an individual school basis. Because it really, you guys have, 7 periods, you guys could have a couple hundred kids that you're dealing with, where an elementary school may have 20 to 30. So, or elementary teachers. So it kind of also depends on what kind of school we're talking about in addition. Uh-huh.
Anyone else? Seeing that, since this is a public hearing, we do need to have a motion to close tonight's public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close tonight's public hearing.
Fantastic, a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The Chino Valley High School Student Council report.
I think Wesley's on his way, so
Okay,
if we could wait, because there was a really hard time finding parking, so.
not a problem. Is it okay if we move on and then
Yes,
we will come
please.
back to him?
That would
Thank
be
you.
awesome, thank you.
Superintendent's report, Mr. Scholl.
You have my superintendent's report is attached. What may be the last COVID update that I do, hoping. The numbers for the week of February 27th came out today. Well, let me back up. The State Department of Health Services has stopped giving daily reports of state data. They now do it just weekly. So, and the dashboard that they used to use for schools completely changed also. So it's gone, that dashboard is. So I kind of took the data that they are reporting and put it into the dashboard format. So what that means is over the past 2 weeks, because from February 13th to February 27th, that's kind of, I think, a good number. We went from 170 cases per 100,000 in Yavapai County down to 47. We went from high transmission down 2 steps to moderate transmission. Okay. For the percent positivity, 2 weeks ago, we were at 14.2%, which is high transmission, down to 4.9, which is low transmission. Okay. Using those 2 factors, really we're still in the moderate range because we're in moderate for the cases, but I think it's going down even further and it should be below that next week. So very positive. We actually, you guys approved a contact tracer a couple months ago. We actually are moving her to a different job come after spring break. So she's still going to be in the district. We found another position for her. And so the job's going to still be there, just vacant. Hopefully we'll never need it again, but that person is going to get, she was on a timesheet. She was doing 2-3 hours a week. So this way she'll be full-time employed and it's really working out.
That's awesome. It's crazy to think that we've been dealing with this for 2 years. But this week,
You're exactly right. It's almost 2 years to the day.
that was a tough one that we had to do.
Well, the only thing that I've got to comment on is that Yavapai County lost its title as having the lowest infection infection rate per 100,000 in Arizona. Santa Cruz now took over from us. We're only second best in the state of Arizona.
And what's interesting, Santa Cruz had one of the highest
Yeah.
infection
6
rates
months
at one
ago.
time.
Yeah.
They were, even though it's a small county, it's pretty big, had a rough time down there.
Yeah, and this is cases per 100,000,
Yeah.
so it depends on your population.
Yeah.
So we're still in the best in Arizona. And I think it says something about Yavapai County.
And to kind of give you an idea, on the back of that first sheet, there's kind of Yavapai County statistics from the county health department. Yesterday, we had, in the entire county, 5 cases. School-age kids, there was 1 school-age case that was reported yesterday for the entire county. So that'll give you an idea of where COVID is for the county. So we're really excited about that. 100-day count. 100th day is come and gone. Our 100th day ADM, now this is going to adjust over time as the data gets revised and so forth. But right now we are at 2,218. Last year's ADM was 2,061. We are up 157 ADM this year, which is awesome. Awesome.
I just have to say, Territorial did a really awesome job. I love seeing all the kids dressed up as old men. There were some that I was like, holy cow, how did their parents make them look like that? Like, these kids enjoyed that 100th day so much, including my own. But there were some really cool things that happened there. So good job, Randy. That's always such a good thing to look forward to. It's the staff. It's not me, it's the staff. They are awesome. Thank you.
So that's good news for the district, and you know, we keep seeing, how many kids did we have enroll yesterday at Territorial, or the day before? 4?
4 the day before.
Yeah,
And 1
Still enrolling?
still enrolling.
Wow.
There's a local charter school that we have a kind of an exodus from a local charter school, not in Chino Valley, but in the Tri-City area or Quad City area. And we had how many at the high school recently? 2.
And I'm expecting more.
So, you know, and hopefully we'll capture some of those kids next year when they actually close down, so. We're still enrolling kids, and that's okay also. It's a okay problem to have.
Yeah.
Aggregate expenditure limit. Hopefully this will be the last time I talk about this for 9 months. The state legislature waived the AEL for this current year. Doesn't require the governor's signature. It just required the resolutions from both the House and the Senate by 2/3. Thank you. But our concern now is whether the legislature will work on a long-term fix, which really requires a referendum from the legislature to the voters of Arizona, because it would require a change to the Constitution, the Arizona Constitution. So I've heard 0 about anything related to that. But we'll see what happens. Otherwise, I'm hoping this does not become an annual event that we have to worry about. And on top, you know, I don't think we'll have to deal with 208 on an annual basis. So maybe if it does happen again next year, it could be taken care of early January instead of waiting a week before the deadline. The legislative update. So there is a PowerPoint that says Rural Arizona Schools Coalition. Looks like this. It's the legislative update. This came from, we are a member of the Rural Arizona Schools Coalition called RASC. And that RASC has some lobbyists. So SB 1412 is substitute certificates. So we worked with the Department of Education on emergency certificates, kind of loosening up the emergency substitute certificate requirements. This would make it for all substitutes. So in order to be a substitute, a regular sub, you have to have a bachelor's degree. This would make it to be a regular sub, you just need a fingerprint card. So that, and then the nice thing is those that have applied for that emergency certificate, emergency subcert in the past 2 or 3 months would be grandfathered in and would automatically get their regular certificate without having to pay again. So that's that one, SB 1412. SB 2439 has a requirement about board approval for library books, 60-day review period for library books, and some other things. Really wouldn't apply to us for two reasons. Would exempt schools that are part of a library network, like the high school is part of the Yavapai Library Network. And then also would exempt schools that do not have a media specialist, which is a certificated librarian, basically. We have paraprofessionals, so it wouldn't really apply to us. But it's really, you know, it makes things just more difficult to do the job that we're trying to do, that's all. SB 1654, seizure management treatment plan, and this requires training if there's a student that has a seizure. It was going to make all employees take the training. Now it's just employees that have contact with the student. So eased up a little bit there. SB 1630 talks about school buses, and if you remember, I was driving our little gray bus around. We were hoping that this was going to kind of ease that up, but then the Department of or ADOT added in this requirement that to do that, I'd require a CDL, so doesn't really help us much. So it's not
now
gonna.
if you're gonna drive any district vehicle, you have to have a CDL?
No, if you're driving an 11 to 15 passenger vehicle, which is our gray vans,
Okay,
to and from school. So field trips, I would still be able to, or anyone could drive it to do field trips. But if you're picking kids up to go to and from school, you would still need a CDL, which is not helpful.
and they just changed the requirements of that too, right?
Right. HB 2808. This is called the school takeover bill. If a school has a D or an F for 3 years in a row, they must be either taken over by what's called an achievement district, or an out-of-state charter school operator could take over the school. And that relationship is either for 15 years or 25 years, depending on what the entity is. Lots of problems with this. I think the implementation is practically impossible. Wouldn't kick in until 2029. But what school, it has to be an A school to take over another failing school. What school is going to want to do that because they don't get any money to do it? But they get some one-time money for 15 years to take over a school. And the charter operator gets one-time money to take over for 25 years. But you know, think about us if that happened, and I'll pick on Heritage because they're here. And they'll never get a D or an F, but let's say they got a D or an F for 3 years in a row, and a charter operator came in to take over this Heritage Middle School. There would no longer be a district-operated middle school in the district. So where would all those special needs kids go and get educated? Where would all those ELL kids go and get educated? There's requirements that school districts are required to do that charter schools aren't. And who would now be responsible for doing that? So it's not, it's what they're talking about is not practical. The person that put the bill forward is running for state school superintendent. So it may be more political than anything else, but I'll just leave it at that.
That's just crazy that you could, so you could mess up for 3 years, but then you don't get your school back for 25?
Yes. Yeah. And and this is, nothing, it's just the way it is. Most of these schools that have Ds and Fs are on the reservation, which makes it even that much less likely that there would be a entity that would want to take them over.
Wouldn't they have to approve that, like, to their reservation?
It's an Arizona school, so. Cindy and I were talking about a district today that's been taken over. They have a receiver. They're in receivership that's up on the reservation. A district school. So, and it happens. Some other bad bills. This is the list. That's the title of this page, bad bills. SB 1211. I'm all about transparency. I'm all about transparency. But this would require teachers to post their lesson plans and all materials used in the classroom online within 7 days. Worksheets, note pages, PowerPoints, websites, anything that's used would have to go online within 7 days.
After or before?
After. Second thing is this would require schools to get permission from permission form before conducting surveys that ask personal questions. One of the concerns I had is the Arizona Student Youth Survey. Thank you. We think that might be exempt. That's the one that asks kids about their smoking and drug use and things like that. That's used by the health department to kind of target kids and their needs. We think that might be exempt because that survey is in statute. So it hopefully would be exempt. But, right. And then on the back, this is something that came out, I think, 2 days ago. The On Track Summer Camp Program provides $100 million for summer camps or summer school. I'm going to tell you right now, we have no intent of tapping into it. It requires the summer camp or summer school to go 8 weeks long. We had trouble getting staff for 4 weeks and we burned them out last year. So we don't think that we can adequately staff this. But if there is a community organization that wants to do this, they're welcome to apply for the money and we would support them the best we could. And so it doesn't have to be a school district to access this money. It could be a Boys and Girls Club, it could be a YMCA, another community organization like that is more than willing, or that's more than willing to do this, take this on, can tap into that $100 million. Schools must be rated A, B, or C. All of our schools match or meet that requirement. So again, if a community organization wants to tap into that, we'd be more than willing to support them any way we could. Questions on that?
That's not like set in stone yet, right?
What's that?
Everything's.
These are all bills that are in process right now.
Okay. Just making sure.
There's still, we've gone all the way till almost the end of June.
Okay.
I asked the lobbyist, so when do you think it's gonna be done? And she goes, I just have no idea. They haven't even started the budget negotiations. Well, I'm sure there's negotiations going on, but not in public. The public part of the budget negotiations has not started yet. So that may take a while still. Out this week, and I think I sent you guys a link to it, is let me see if I'm skipping anything. Oh, the June board meeting. I'm actually, the Arizona School Administrators has their annual meeting that on the 13th. I'm hoping to be able to move the school board meeting to the 6th. Mr. Livingston, does that give you enough time to do the proposed budget by June 6th?
Make it work.
Okay. Want to see what the availability for y'all is on that day.
I can do it.
I'm sure that I'm busy anyways.
Okay.
It's annual conference for school.
Okay. Is there another day, or are you okay missing the meeting, or
I'm okay.
are you sure?
Drug her into that decision. The 13th will be moved to the 6th.
13th will be moved to the 6th.
And as always, Karen will send us a reminder.
Staff of the quarter. On March 1st, we recognized the teachers and staff of the quarter. At Territorial, we had Luisa Gamboa, our teacher, and Leanne Lopez, our staff member. At Del Rio, it was requested to honor a couple of our therapists there. Jane McManigal is our speech therapist, and Ann Williams is our occupational therapist. At HMS, we had Ariadna Mian, our teacher, and Sherry Riley, our staff member. And unfortunately, Ariadna was not available. Hopefully she got her stuff.
She did, and she
Good.
is just so proud and so happy.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
And then at the high school, it was Miles Holder, our teacher, and Star Barnes, our staff member. And at our district, we had to, I'll say, I had to lie to Cheyenne, because she's the one that keeps the list of our staff members and teachers of the quarter. So I threw Heidi under the bus and said Heidi was gonna get it, but it was actually Cheyenne, the one that we actually honored as our district office staff member of the quarter,
Not
so.
another person.
Yeah, so thanks for taking one for the team, Heidi.
Anytime.
All right. As always, I want to thank Donna Webb from JIDS, who has continued to support the staff of the court program, providing treats. There's a misspelling there, but it's treats and gift cards to each employee that is recognized. So thanks to Donna for everything she does in supporting the school district. Now we can move on to the classroom spending report. This is the report that comes out every year. I hated the format that I saw this time. It was very difficult to read compared to prior years. So what I've done is kind of took it. There's a chart that looks like this, so that you can compare. It's in there on the back of the one of the pages. But this is a much easier way to compare year over year our classroom spending report. So our classroom spending from 2020 to 2021 went from 64.9% to 64%, while at the same time going up almost $1.1 million. Our non-classroom spending went from 35.1% to 36%, and that went up $900,000. And I have an explanation for that. That explains both of them, really. If you look at our food service, our food service went from 1.2 million to 1.8 million last year. That's because we were feeding the kids got free food. We were doing our take-home meals. We had buses out. We had a couple days a week. We were doing grab and goes. Our food service department, our transportation department, really worked their tails off to feed our kids. And so that pumped a bunch of extra revenue into the district. And what you got to remember is most of that revenue is pass through. It's not discretionary. We can't just use that money for anything. The money comes in because we're buying meals from Sodexo. So what that does is pump up the whole amount and decreases the various things that aren't non-classroom spending. But our instruction went up $700,000 year over year. Our student support went up $300,000 year over year, and our instructional support went up $50,000. So, a lot more money going, $2 million going into, or I'm sorry, $1.2 million going into classroom spending. I don't think the percentages are reflective of what actually is taking place because of the food service. And then our average teacher salary in 2019 was just under $45,000. Last year, just over 48, and this year in 2021, this last full school year, it went up to $51,625. So that we're proud of working on getting that salary up as well. Questions on the classroom spending report?
There's an interesting article in the Courier a while back about average teacher salaries in the Prescott area, and all of them made the 20% increase that was on the teachers' goal, and supposedly the legislation to increase them. So
I believe the author of that article is in the room.
oh. Anyhow, it was a well-done article, and I appreciated reading it. No, it was good to see that, that all three districts in our area.
We had the money now, we had the money, we put the existing teachers got the 25% rate. Part of the problem is if you had somebody coming from a high pay district coming here, their salary actually went down because even with the raise, they were, we couldn't match what they were paying down there.
Sure.
So we had to go off of our salary schedule. So, but everyone that was here, that stayed here, got a 5% raise.
But isn't Arizona, aren't we still like the lowest in the United States as far as teachers?
Top. We're in the bottom couple, probably like, I've always heard 48, if not, that kind of thing.
But at least we all made the 20%, which is the good news.
Yes. Any other questions on classroom spending report? Is it the last thing? Oh, no, principal search update. I printed out the 5 applications that we have. I was just printing out before this meeting. Ms. Daniels and I are gonna kind of do a paper screen tomorrow, make some phone calls. Our date for the interviews right now are March 23rd. The idea is that those that are invited to interview, they'll meet with the committee, and I'm gonna ask Cindy to talk about the committee in just a second. She put the committee together. And then I'm gonna basically do a dashboard tour of the community, and that'll give me an opportunity to spend some time with the candidate to kind of get do basically my interview with the candidate. In the afternoon, the candidates will take part in a staff meet and greet at Del Rio. Dinner with you. So if we could, is that set for 5 o'clock?
4:45.
4:45 on March 23rd, which is a Wednesday. All the candidates and potentially their spouses, if they want their spouse there, significant other, will be at the Culinary Arts Room. 4:45 on March 23rd, Culinary Arts Room, dinner with the candidates.
We'll be sending emails out on that.
We will send an email and invitation out for that. So that, and then they go straight from there over back to Del Rio for the community meet and greet at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock that afternoon or evening. And then the committee and myself will get together and we'll make an offer to the candidate, give them some time to think about it, but the idea is to come to the April board meeting with a candidate for your consideration. Alrighty. Now the last item is end of the calendar. These are some of the important dates. There is a calendar in here. There's a lot going on, hence the small writing. I apologize. I need to put it on 2 pages. But this gives you an idea of kind of the stuff going on. And again, the important stuff happening include, we have some choir and band concerts on May 2nd and 3rd. FFA banquet, we have the senior awards night. I put it on here because I think it's one of the funnest things, neatest things that we do is dodgeball versus the Chino Valley Police Department, which involves some of these teachers here. We do our district recognition, which is honoring our retirees and our 5, 10s, 15s, 20s, and we have some 25s this year. And I don't think we have any 30s, right? No, that was last year. And then we have, of course, graduation. Make sure you get that on your calendar, which is Wednesday, May 25th at 7 o'clock at Finley.
And middle school does not do graduation anymore.
They're doing a kind of an overnight trip instead of the recognition.
Apparently I'm volunteered for that. I hope both of you are going to.
We are.
Okay.
We will be there. It'll be fun.
Someone who's experienced camping with 8th graders, don't sleep in the cabin. That's all I gotta say. Sleep outside the door.
So they have to crawl over
I'm
you.
assuming
Yes.
you have lots of volunteers that you probably won't really need.
I think you are on the waiting list. You're safe.
Keep moving me down.
But if someone cancels, I think you're number 1.
Any other questions for Mr. Scholl this evening?
You want to go back to student council?
Yes,
She's here, Leslie.
you're here. Come on up, Leslie.
There's the cake from track.
Sorry. Alright, good evening, everyone. I'm Leslie, and today I just have a couple updates on student council and our events. So first, probably the most important, we have prom. April 16th, We are doing it at the Sam Hill Warehouse downtown. We will begin ticket sales March 28th. Singles are $60 and $100 for couples. It's the usual price we've done for the past couple of years. We're gonna do senior pre-sales starting March 21st, and then it's basically it. Shay Daniels and the rest of the junior prom committee created this video. If you want to watch it first.
Is now the time?
Yeah. For our theme is Starry Night.
Put that sound up right there.
I can sing for you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Sounds up all the way.
Well, it's a good venue. Everyone really likes it.
You can watch it. Do you want to describe where this is at?
Well, it's downtown, like by the square, probably. Like you guys probably know the hotel. It's like where Staples and like Chipotle and all those places, like right across the street, right there. We got a good deal, and I guess people. We were kind of concerned about the ride.
Come on, they caught up.
That's all the information I told you right now. Well, thank you to Parker Schreiber who made this.
Leslie, is Purple Lightning the DJ?
No, so this year we're skipping out on a DJ. We invested it into our venue because every year they seem like all the kids, that's what they complain about, is not having a great DJ. It's like, so they really like our homecoming like music style, so we decided to just save that money. Because I think it was like $2,000 that we spent on
Yeah.
a DJ last year, and like no one liked it. So we were like, you know what, let's save ourselves the trouble this year, and so we're gonna do our own music. People always seem to like it, and then we kind of know what our students here like, so I think it'll be a better choice for us to do that. We'll see how it goes this year. If not, maybe next year we'll spend the money on it. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so next is our senior trip. We are going to Disneyland May 11th. We leave May 11th. It's the same night as our senior awards. So we leave that night like at 11 p.m. or something like that. And then we will just come back the next day that night, May 12th. And then, so we are looking for about a group of 50 people to go. And so far we only have about 15 people signed up. The tickets are about $160. And we'll be going to both parks in California. All the students seem really excited this year though. We got more of a turnout than we expected. And then last thing is just community service. Our student council is looking towards the students participating in more community service projects to give back to the community. So far, we are doing the blood drive March 9th and the large gym from 9 to 5. You can sign up online from Vigilanti.com, or you can email Alexandra Time at chinovalleyschools.com to do your appointment. And then in the past, we have contributed to JDRF, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, to support everyone living with type 1 diabetes and to help find a cure. And then we would like to continue to support them. So we're just going to do like little fundraisers. Before we sold little bracelets like during lunch for like $5, and all that profit would go to the foundation. So we're looking to do that again. And then I think that's everything I have for you guys today.
Thank you, Leslie. Any
questions?
questions for Leslie? Good job. Thank you. So item number 7C is our preliminary 22-23 district budget.
So later in the meeting, you guys are all gonna hopefully approve, or you'll be asked to approve, the staff increases for next year. In order to do that, it's really important to kind of know where we are financially before you do that. So that's kind of what this does. So as I mentioned, Mr. Livingston's gonna bring the actual proposed budget to you all in June, at the June board meeting. But right now, this is what we think the budget will look like and changes that we anticipate. So there's really 4 areas that I look at when I'm the one that's responsible for this. Probably, I may not, maybe I shouldn't, but I like it. That's why I am. I'm superintendent, I get to choose that. So we have increased revenue, increase and decreased costs. And then, let's see, increased revenue, increased costs, and decreased costs. So our increased revenue is limited by statute to 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is lower. So right now, inflation's running 5 to 7%, whatever number you decide on. So that means we get 2% increase to our M&O budget. That's what we have. That means we'll get about $291,000.
That's from the state.
From the state, correct. Well, and that's, yeah, as part of the budget, the budget process, correct. Our increase and decreased costs, I was thinking we were gonna be hit with an 8% increase on insurance. We were surprised to find it's actually closer to 5, but the way we do insurance, it's gonna be 6. So I'm pretty happy with a 6% increase to insurance when historically we've seen as high as 20. So especially with the inflation that we're looking at, a 6% increase to insurance is not bad at all. So that's going to be about $103,000 to M&O. And I put in here, in the first time in recent memory, and there's been some people that have been in the district a while, ASRS contributions are going down. Arizona State Retirement contributions are decreasing this year after going up significantly over several years. So that should save the district about $24,000. So additional increased expenses are salary increases that I'm talking about. That'll be about $485,000. So the net change to M&O is about a increased expense of about $273,000. Based on where we're at now with the budget, our anticipated carry forward, we really believe that is something that we can manage as part of the budget going forward. So that 273 we can absorb as part of the budget, overall budget. These numbers are kind of summarized on the next page. You have kind of things put together. It also talks a little bit about here how much a salary increase costs. For example, 1% to certified is about $58,000. 1% to admin about 10, and so forth. So all those numbers are on there. And then what we have to remember is all of these increased costs and decrease for ASRS also impact grants. But that's something that the grant managers, Cindy and Nicole and Brandy has quite a few grants, and the high school with CTE they manage that. So questions on that?
Straightforward.
Thank you. All right, item 7D1 is our financial reports for activity for February 28th. Mr. Livingston.
Great. So for the month ended February 28th, let's see. Madam President, members of the board, administration, staff, ladies and gentlemen, this is a report of the financial situation the district is in at the end of February. I'll highlight 4 or 5 things. Overall, I think the district is quite healthy. Our fund balance compared to last year at this time is significantly higher. I did have some audit reports for you. I will send you some emails. Our audit is completely done now, and there's a federal audit clearinghouse that we send reports to, and all those documents are done, so I will email you some summary documents for the year end, June 30th, 2021, just for your information. So back to February 28th of 2022, a couple things I'd like to just highlight. And I put some summaries. Here is a percentage of our operating year gone. At the end of February, it was almost 67% of the days gone. It's really handy if at this point in the year, you haven't already spent 80% of your budget, or 67% of your year gone, and we haven't. We've spent right on 60.1% of our operating budget, which is a nice healthy 6%. And those of you that looked at the classroom or the budget overall, you see that 6% in our operating fund is a cushion. Now, there's still bills to pay, but that's after encumbrances as well. So we have that nice, almost 7% cushion. If we were, again, 75 or 80% gone at this point in the year, it would be a good sign. Capital budget, 1.1 million, 33.9% spent. And yes, we have over 500,000 encumbered there to be spent. Some of those will not be spent at all. We know they're encumbered just in case things happen. And the cash funds, we've looked at this before, and we have just a little information, and Superintendent Scholl can add to this. I'd like to just focus on two funds there. First of them is our food service fund, and all I can say is the Sodexo contractors worked out really well. There's over $400,000 cash in there right now. They're able to claim meals that they're still serving, grab and go and other things, so participation is extremely high, and our reimbursements are extremely high. So that's just a real hats off to them, because that's not easy to do that. Most districts in the state subsidize food service. They're in the red right now. They have to take operating funds just to break even and move those funds into food service. So that's a trend that we like to have. Fund 691 on our cash balances is our school facilities board fund. And you see current expenses and current activity in there are, is it 140,000? 156,000 received and spent. As of today, we spent another 272,000. So total activity in there is right on 435,000. And that's basically EMC, our architects that have been really looking at our roofs. And we're to a point, in fact, we had 4 esteemed visitors here last week. Mr. See if I can get this right. Dave Kennan from the School Facilities Board, our liaison, Toshma Webster Adams, in addition to Jack Smith and Andy Tobin from the Department of Administration, actually walked our roofs, all 4 of them. And now we're kind of at a crossroads. I haven't talked a lot with EMC, our architects, because they haven't given us reports yet. We've just invoiced and pay as our invoices come in. But it seems like we're going 2 directions, and they were here to get some more insights, some more first-hand knowledge. And the options seem to be, option 1, open up all the classrooms and reinforce the classroom roof structures with structural steel, with more structural steel, close the roofs back up, and then put the units on top and use the existing ducting as much as possible from our evap coolers. That's one option. The other option is kind of novel, but it's used a lot of different places, and it's put like mini splits, they're called VRFs, out in the open on the ground level, and then just like a mini split or a heat pump, take it into the classrooms from the ground level. And that seems to be where we're at. And we haven't heard any more than that, but that's kind of the 2 choices that I've heard them discuss.
Yes.
You're kidding.
Oh, both Mr. Tobin and Mr. Smith are from Yavapai County. Jack Smith was a former county supervisor, I believe. So, and then Andy Tobin lived in Paul. But, and with the VRFs, I want to mention, they don't have to be on the ground, because what I think that they're looking at is not putting them on roofs, but putting them on overhangs. So for example, and that's actually what they did outside the high school, is there's an overhang on the north side of the gym, at the big gym. The big air conditioning units are on that. So they're still up off the ground, just not on the roof where you need, engineering done to make sure that it was strong enough.
Well, and I have to admit, John, every time you talk about doing roof-mounted new units, it scares me. because these roof structures are 20, 30, 40 years old. And that's, no matter how much you engineer and try to strengthen those things, it's a danger. Personal opinion, but I've just heard too many bad stories with the city of Phoenix about those things not going well and having to come back in and redo stuff where systems failed where they didn't think they were going to fail. So the second, just from a personal standpoint, to me, that sounds like far and away the better solution.
With
So
the outside units,
the outside units,
not
yeah,
roof mounted.
right, yeah. Yeah, whether it's on the intermediate ledge or ground mounted, either one of those, personally to me, sound like a better solution.
I wish we had some proposals from our architect engineer team for you. We don't quite yet, but they're coming. And then next steps will be to run them by you and get some feedback, and then put a bid package together for general contractors to bid on, and then get whatever units we are going to receive, get them bid. And because we've been taking sometimes 5 months to get capital items received, we placed orders in January of last year, and it took until August to get here. And so we know there's a big delay on commodities being shipped, and so that'll probably be at least into the month of April before this analysis is done, and then we're ready to put a bid package together, probably into May before we close on bids and get them all received. So that's just an update.
So are we looking at possibly doing the work next school year?
I would say that's a really good possibility, that even if we do a shorter, quicker option, the units won't be here. It's probably realistic to say at least 6 months out from the time we ordered them. And we haven't even got the bid package yet. So yeah, I'm thinking if we could have some of these done by Thanksgiving, that would be really optimistic.
Wow, that's awesome.
Okay.
At least they know where Chino Valley School District is now. They're very, very passionate about turning some things around.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that work. Student activity fund?
And student activity fund year-to-date revenues, $6,250, expenditures, $1,648. And this is kind of right where we need to be, $135,000 cash in there. Things are going well with those funds, are being managed well, and they're not being used as much as they were pre-COVID days, but it's working well. Thank you.
Any questions for us? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8A through G, our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Item 9A, moving right along, Secretary 2 for our preschool, Mrs. Cox.
Good evening. I'm coming to you tonight to ask for an addition of a Secretary 2 position for preschool alone. We have grant funding that we can fund this position, so it's not an M&O cost, but preschool is cumbersome to say the least with all the paperwork. I love preschool, but there's a lot involved in paperwork, and so this will take some stress off the office staff and a lot of stress off of me to have this position, and we can totally fund it with the grant we have received.
That's great.
So,
And this is a full-time position.
yes, 150,
Eight.
thank you,
Uh-huh.
158 days.
First with the numbers.
How soon would you think about filling that position?
Say that again. I'm
How
sorry.
soon would you think about filling that position?
For the next school year,
Oh, next.
so
Did you already have somebody in mind?
possibly. It's somebody that I have to be able to work with pretty closely.
Yeah.
Because I really want to push over all of the grants that I'm overseeing right now, so that person, that is their sole job, and collecting all the tuition and attendance, to take that off the office staff that we have right now. So,
This is not marked, but I presume it's an action item.
Yes.
I make a motion, we approve the position of secretary 2 for preschool.
I'll second
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 9B, another secretary. No, just moving. What am I doing? Nope, it's a new one.
So, right now, we have a position in the business office that is food service and facilities secretary. And really, the position is beyond just the secretary, but that's how it worked out. John is making a proposal to do what's called MIPS, which is Medicare reimbursement. They would need additional hours to do that. And it would bring in $200,000 to $300,000 is the estimate right now. By basically some of the medical procedures that we do through our therapists and our nurses and things like that could actually be reimbursed by Medicare. And so we need somebody to kind of manage that, and that would be the half that John has in his office would move from facilities to that. And then that half position really didn't meet the needs of facilities anyway. And so this position would actually be, instead of the business office, would be down in facilities. They have room for this person to do it, POs, work orders, timesheets, all that stuff that is taking up the director's time, that is really more clerical. This position would take that over. This is actually a 12-month position, because facilities works 12-month, full-time as a secretary too.
Any questions? Another action item. Get a motion,
I'll
please.
make the motion to approve a 1.0 FTE 12-month secretary to position to assist district maintenance department.
Fantastic. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 9C, a 12-month IT technician. Larry, are you gonna present it, John?
I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Put you on the spot. I'm so sorry.
This position is really meant to start next school year, or probably July 1. With the number of devices that we have added because of the influx of stimulus money through ESSER, we need another IT tech to fix devices, clean devices, update devices, and all those things. So right now we have we'll say half an IT tech at Territorial. We have one IT tech that operates between Heritage and Del Rio. Then we have one here at the high school, and then Larry's kind of a floater, network guy, that kind of thing that supervises that department. What the proposal is to move the existing person that's between Heritage and Del Rio to Heritage, and this position would serve Del Rio. And really what we need, what I want to mention is that even though they're housed at a certain place, when something needs to happen, they're all over the place. So for example, one of the things that's happening now is hanging interactive TVs. And it takes a couple guys, and the team gets together, and they'll go and do the job and move on from school to school hanging those devices. So just because that's where they're housed doesn't mean that's where they're going to solely serve, but it would be just an additional body to the IT department.
Makes sense to me. I mean, everything's going on technology.
Yeah.
Once again, we have an action item, so if we can get a motion to approve item 9C.
I'll move that we approve a 1.0 full-time FTE 12-month IT technician.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is the secretary position? No, just checking. Item 9D, English language development. Ms. Daniels.
So you can see what increased ADM what happens when we're up students. And a lot of the positions that we're coming to you with are positions that were in existence in the district a long time ago before the economy dipped and our enrollment dipped. And now that enrollment's up and exploding, we need some of those back. So one of them is our an SEI teacher, and I'm asking for this position to be housed at Del Rio 4/5 of the day and 1/5 of the day at Heritage. We talked last month in our meeting about the increased numbers in language learner students that we have everywhere, and this will help address that need that we have. So this person, we have 300 minutes a week that we're supposed to deliver English language learner instruction for the purpose of language acquisition. Having trouble meeting that minimum, those minimum number of minutes with the quantity of staff we have right now. So this will enable us to not only meet the letter of the law, but also meet the needs of our language learners to try to help them become as proficient in English as quickly as possible. So it's a certified position.
Gotcha.
Okay,
I just want to make a comment.
yes, please.
If I could.
Yes, please.
Okay, don't talk in this, okay. Cindy briefed me on our English language learner situation, which I was stunned at. The number of kids coming into the district all the way through the high school. It was unbelievable, and the lack of English, because they were coming from, many times, Mexico, staying with family that are already here. Was it 4 kids in the high school that do not speak English that you mentioned?
We actually have 29 language learner students at the high school this year. All but 4 are new with no English.
Yeah, so it is, I didn't realize the situation was as great as it is. And so anything we can do to help in that program, to me, is long needed.
Totally agree.
I agree too.
Well,
With that,
then,
I'll make an approval. I'll approve the approval of the English language development structured English Emerson teacher position.
second,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Item 9E, the proposed 22-23 classified salary schedule. Mr. Schultz.
Staff is proposing to add $1 an hour to the base pay for all classifications on the classified salary schedule. This hopefully will get us through the minimum wage increase that's set to take place in January. When we raised it, I think 50 cents last year, it did not get us through the minimum wage increase last year. And I think inflation's increased since then, so we anticipate a higher minimum wage increase than we did last year. I think it was 65 cents last year. This hopefully will get us through. Our minimum wage in the district would now be $14 an hour. And then this will be reflected in the classified raises that will come to you in just a few minutes. But so I basically, there's the old salary schedule, the new salary schedule. All I did was add an hour to all the classifications, or $1 an hour to all the classifications.
Any questions on the classified salary schedule?
Just one more thing I want to add for the public. The minimum wage is increased annually based off of inflation is out of our control. This is across the state. I think it's in state statute, or maybe it was a voter elected referendum that this took place. So it's annually adjusted for inflation. 6 years ago, we were at 820, something like that. And the district's minimum wage at that time was $9 an hour. We got to keep it above minimum wage because we are competing against McDonald's, all these places that can offer minimum wage, and they don't have ASRS taken out of their salary. So the net after ASRS salary retirement, which is a benefit, but a lot of people that are making that wage, they'd rather have the money in their pocket than in a retirement system. So we are competing, and we need to stay a little bit higher than the minimum wage in order just to compete.
Will this also help with some of the bus driver salaries?
Absolutely. So this will help across all classifications, really.
Concerns me, okay.
If you look at what the bus driver salary will become, so starting bus drivers will start at, I need to get there, looks like $16 an hour for a bus driver. And I think if I recall, we made a correction to that a couple years ago, or maybe last year, we bumped it up a little bit to try to attract more bus drivers.
How are we doing our bus drivers?
There's a resignation today that we got for 2 weeks. It's still a struggle, still unable to serve the Robert Road route in Prescott Valley that we typically pick up kids on. Struggling with van drivers, it's difficult. But that's not the only industry where they're having trouble finding workers. It's all over the place.
This is an action item, so if we can get a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the proposed 2022-23 classified salary schedule.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
So then we'll do the 22-23 certified staff entry salary schedule.
So one thing that has been my goal and that, over time, the board has really tasked me with is increasing certified salaries. The classified salaries have kind of been taken care of with the minimum wage increase. So we really want to push those certified salaries up. In order to do that, I am proposing adding $1,000 to the base for the certified salary schedule. That will be reflected in the certified raise later, and I'll talk about that. But this all I did was add $1,000 to the base. So our base would go from 33 to 34. With $9,000, pretty much, I don't want to say guaranteed, but that's what we anticipate for the classroom site fund. A brand new teacher coming out of college would make, with zero experience, zero above a bachelor's degree, would make $43,000. That's a combination of contract amount plus classroom site fund, which is formerly 301.
Any other questions or comments?
Now I'll make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 certified staff and base salary schedule.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Let's now do the administrative and classified directors contract renewals for fiscal year 22-23.
So I want to make sure make clear that this does not apply to me. You guys do my raise May or June. So I'm not proposing my own raise here. I am proposing that directors get a 4% increase, and we can compare that a little bit to the other classifications. But this would be a 4% increase. There's a couple I want to mention. The real school principal is open, so that's not on there. And Mr. Livingston is not on there because he currently is a ESI employee. So he will get the benefit next year. At this time, he'll benefit there. But otherwise, I'm proposing a 4% increase to the base salary of all of our administrators and classified directors.
Okay, and you'll explain kind of where that 4% is.
It's
later.
with the other classifications, absolutely.
And we can afford this too.
This is part of that budget that I talked about earlier.
Okay.
That was included in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay,
I'll make the approval of administrator and director contracts for 2022 and 2023.
a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 9H, certified staff and therapists contracts renewals.
So we talked about how for admin, it would be a 4% increase. What I'm proposing for our certified staff and therapists, for certified staff, which are teachers and teachers on assignment, is that they would get $1,000 added to their base. And for some and that's for those that work 1,424 hours. It's prorated if you're on a 158-day contract, or there's different contracts, so it's prorated for some. But $1,000 to the base and a 2% increase. For therapists, it'd be $1,400 and 2% increase. For teachers, that $1,000 and 2% averages out to be 4.4%. For therapists, that $1,400 and 2% averages out to be 4%. So where admin was at 4%, teachers would be 4.4 on average, and therapists would be 4%. Okay. The cost would be about $210,000 in M&O, just over $21,000 in grants. One thing I'd like to add to the motion, so whoever does make it, is we are going to be proposing, in addition to this, a return to work stipend at maybe the next board meeting, where certified staff and therapists would receive $1,000 in their first paycheck when they come back they come back in July. The pay would be in August. Okay, that would come out of the classroom site fund, and a little bit would have to come out of M&O for those teachers or those staff that weren't eligible, but that would add $1,000 to that salary. Right now in our contracts for our certified staff and our therapists, there's what's called liquidated damages. And we've talked about this sometimes when a teacher tries to get out of their contract. It costs $750 to get out of your contract. So if you think about it, a teacher could sign their contract, show up for one day of work, get that $1,000 and cancel their contract and still be $250 to deposit. Right? So as part of the action requested, I would like to add that increase the liquidated damages to $2,000 from $750. So that would cover the $1,000 and then move the $750 to $1,000. So that $2,000 would we feel cover that. It's significant. I guarantee it's not going to prevent everybody from wanting to get out of their contract, but we're asking to increase just because of the $1,000 return to work stipend. There is a list of employees, and who's that?
Any questions? Just real quick, so the return to work, is it more of an incentive to ensure that we're able to retain the teachers?
Yes, we want them to sign their contracts and come back. So it's almost like a retention bonus.
Yeah, one-time bonus.
Yes. Yep. And that's gonna come, most of that will come out of the classroom site fund, which is the 301 money. So it's not, it's a smallish M&O expense.
Okay, I will make the approval of the 2021-22 certified contract renewals for certified staff and therapists.
Oh,
Did I do that right?
no, this is an error on me.
Oh.
It's 22-23.
It is.
Yeah, forgive me, that's on me.
Okay, I'll change it.
And then and then increase the liquidated damages to $2,000.
To 2,000?
Please.
Okay, now you're making me. Okay.
Thank you.
For the approval of the 2022-2023 certified contract renewal for certified staff and therapists and the increase the liquidated damages to $2,000. Did I say it right? Okay.
A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 9I, the 22-23 classified hourly rate increases.
So as I mentioned earlier, you approved increasing the hourly classified staff salary schedule by $1. That was really meant to be a minimum wage increase. On top of that, so the proposal is to give every hourly classified staff $1 an hour increase. And then those that have been here since prior to January 1st would get an additional 1.5%. What that does is ensure that people coming into the district with similar experience and education don't make more than those that are already here. That's really what that is meant for. So the cost of that is about $215,000 in M&O, $73,000 in grants. The thing about this is the average, this makes the average increase for classified staff 7.3%. But they tend to be our lowest paid employees. So that $1 an hour really makes that percentage jump significantly. These are the people making $14, $15, and $16 an hour.
Any questions or comments?
And you built that 200,000 into M&O in your projected budget.
That is in the budget that we talked about. This amount is in there.
Yeah, great.
All right, are you on a roll to continue?
I guess.
questions?
I'll make the approval of the non-exempt classified salary increases beginning July 1st, 2022.
A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 9J is the 22-23 employee benefits.
So I had mentioned earlier that we were anticipating an 8% increase. For the district, it's going to be an average of 6%. We received these renewal notices. The cost of the district is about $98,000. Of that, approximately 85% is paid out of M&O. There's amounts that are paid by employees because they may have benefits, these dependent benefits, spouses and kids that are part of that pool, and also grants. So the impact to M&O is about $85,000 4,000, impact to grants about 15,000. We are proposing to keep all the plans the same. So we have 3 plans. We have a buy-up plan, which is a copay plan. We have an HDHP high deductible health plan, HDHP 2,500 and an HDHP 5,000. Actually, probably 3/4 of our employees use the 5,000. That gives them a little bit of benefit because the district pays for the amount on the 2,500. When an employee goes down to the 5,000, that increase or that difference either goes into a health savings account or goes to help pay those dependent benefits. So that dependent coverage. So our dental and vision insurance, employees pay for. We found out yesterday, those increases are 0. Our dental increase is 0. So no increase to dental, vision, or what's the third one I have to say? No, or dental, vision, I guess that's it. Oh, yeah, dental, vision. And so those are all, that's nice. And then, so that just talks about what the summary of what I just talked about would happen. The other thing that we're going to also offer, which is nice, is a dependent coverage, healthcare coverage that's outside of Kairos. So those employees that may have 1 child can pick, instead of paying the Kairos amount, which is typically prohibitively expensive, they could go into this plan. It was like $250 and $180 or something like that, with per month charges. For a separate plan, separate from Kairos, to cover their 1 or 2 children. Beyond that, beyond 1 or 2, it's really affordable to stay on the Kairos. But that may be more affordable, and we may get more families on that. The only kicker is we need 5 families to switch over, or 5 employees to switch over to this plan to offer it. But it would be a separate plan that they could go into, payroll deduction, everything else.
For reference, what was last year's increase?
There is in here, they have what the increase has been over this past several years. And I need to find it. The 1920 was 5%, 2021 was 10, 21-22 was 8 and then this year they say 5, that's the average, but for us it's really a 6% increase because we kick extra money in for the HSA. And when we were talking about the 20%, that was when we had when we were with ASB.
This is an action item, as long as there's no other questions. See none. If we could get a motion to approve the 22-23 employee benefits plan.
I'll make a motion for the approval of the 2022-2023 employee benefits plan.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Personnel report.
All right, while I have the floor, I'm going to apologize to Heritage Middle School because if we had thought about it, we could have put them at the beginning of the agenda instead of at the end.
Well, they came as a group, so.
Yeah.
So I apologize for that. So there is a supplement, so make sure you take a look at the supplement as well. We have 6 new certified, which is a good thing because we're hiring those teachers. Our principals are working their tails off trying to get their staff in. 1 new classified, 1 new classified sub, 10 resignations, 3 retirements, 8 certified changes, 7 classified changes, and 127 timesheets.
I'm sad about 14 because she's so great.
And all these new teachers will be getting that $1,000 new teacher.
No, it's a return to work stipend, so they haven't come to work yet. A lot of these staff members, especially if they are in high need special ed, some of the high school and middle school subjects, they get a $2,000 signing bonus that they get when they come back. So it's actually just for our existing teachers to reward them for sticking with us.
All right. A motion to approve tonight's personnel report along with the sub-minute.
I'll just continue. Approval of the personnel report along with the supplement.
All right, which one of you wants to say that?
Thank you. Meister.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Item 10A. We've been waiting for you.
We saved the best for last.
That's right.
Thanks, yeah. Well, good evening, Madam President, members of the board. We are here representing Heritage Middle School, and I have some fun people I want to introduce to you. So, when I call your name and introduce you, will you please stand? I have Laura Hunter. And then I have the 22-23 assistant principal, Leanne Weller. She's currently instructional coach. And I have Brian Parnell, who teaches 7th grade math. I have Annika Van Orten, she's girls PE. Sarah Jones is teaching 8th and 7th science. I have Joy Efren, she's teaching 6th grade and 8th grade English. I have Sarah Vitus, who teaches Sarah Vitus, who teaches 6th grade math. No, Rachel's over here like, did you forget about me? I have Rachel Davis, who teaches 7 and 8 social studies. And way in the back, I want to introduce our lovely parent who's been sitting here through this meeting, Sadea Owens. And so we're happy to have her here with us as well. So this is what we call our coalition leadership team. And they help make almost all the decisions for Heritage Middle School. Okay? So, all right, thanks. So we're going to go through a slideshow here. So I'll start talking while he's sitting there going. So as many of you know, 7 years ago, Laura and I were becoming a team over at Heritage Middle School. And we wanted to bring an initiative onto our campus, the professional learning community. We both strongly believed in it, and we knew that it would be the best thing for our teachers and our students. So over the past 6 years, we have been taking our staff to training to prepare them to make this transition. And this, what we're doing now, and I mean, we were doing it then, but we're doing it more. We're taking the focus from teaching and focusing on learning. We're collaborating, we're looking at data to help make our decisions for our instruction. We are, the learning by doing, you may have heard that before. That comes from the DeForce, if you know the DeForce. I know Mike does. So it is a commitment, it's a commitment we're making. We started this 6 years ago to have continuous improvement. Okay, so go ahead, on the next slide.
I think it's important for you to understand as you adjust from going from teaching to learning, the focus ends up not being on the teacher, but on the student. And with those collaborative efforts, when the teachers get together and talk about what their kids have learned because they're using data, and they're learning from each other, like if somebody did better than somebody else and they can learn from one another. So they're constantly looking at data and trying to figure out how to improve their practice so that the focus can really be on the kids and what they're learning and doing.
It also helps the students focus on their data as well. We train the students to keep track of their data and have those conversations on how can they improve, what needs to happen, what do they need to do, what does teacher need to do to improve that data. So the training we've had over the last 6 years, so we've gone to training down in Phoenix, we've been to leadership training in Vegas. We went to a response to intervention training down there to start our intervention program. And then now we have our math department, because we consider them experts in standard-based grading. Our math department and Leanne, the instructional coach, they have been leading training right there on our campus for our teachers. helping them prepare for that.
And let me also state that actually, having the math department take over that training actually came from one of the experts that we had on campus. Erin Hampton said our math team is far ahead of any school that they have worked with in the country. And Solution Tree is a huge global education training company. So they looked at our math team and said, they've got it, you need to use them. So congratulations to our math department, which actually included Leanne back because she used to teach math anyway. So she got that ball rolling and then was able to help facilitate it with the math department.
So it came to a time to where we decided we needed to start bringing the experts to our campus, and we've been very, very blessed to be able to bring 3 experts over the years to our campus. Bob Sandhu, we had Tim Brown and Erin Hansen. And I'll tell you, each one of them were experts. As you can see, Bob, he's an expert in deconstructing standards, helping teachers learn how to choose their essential standards and pull out their targets, learning targets. And Tim Brown, he is just, there's a picture of him later. When you see the picture, you'll know. He is, you know the colors. He is orange all the way, so of course I love him. He is a lot of fun, and he just really, truly believes in building those relationships and helping us have that positive culture and climate on our campus. And we're very blessed that we do. That's called, we have a wonderful climate and culture on our campus. Erin Hansen, the story with Erin Hansen is he's really very serious about his job. We were at the RTI training, and there were 6 of us, and we were sitting around the table. And you have to realize there are steps in this PLC process that are hard because it's change. And it's hard to change. It's really hard. And we were what we would consider a singleton school. I had every teacher on their own island. And we needed to come together. But we just didn't think we could do it. And Erin Hansen sat down at her table, and he says, now what you have to do is you've got to get away from these singleton schools, and you've got to give your teachers more than one grade level. And then you're not a singleton. You'll have 3 teachers teaching 8th grade social studies, even though, and we all looked at him and no.
We can't do that.
We cannot do that. And he says, okay, so he grabs his phone, kicks back in his chair, and totally ignores us. He was done. Because he says, if that's the attitude you're going to have, you're right. You'll never do it. And so we knew, Laura and I knew that's where we needed to go. But we didn't want to tell our teachers that's what they had to do because they wouldn't have the buy-in.
Yeah.
So we waited.
And that's crucial. For teachers to buy in is one of the biggest things. If you talk about climate and culture, any administrator can come in and say, this is what you're going to do. And the teachers will do it, or they'll close their door and act like they did it, or whatever you want to do there. That doesn't happen very often, especially not on my campus, but it can happen. And we pushed the initiative and we stayed steady, but we never shoved it down their throats. So we waited for it to authentically occur within our staff, and that's what's happened. That's why we are on our next step now.
Mm-hmm. And kudos to our teachers, because when we were ready to make that transition in our schedule and give teachers 3 preps, 3 grade levels, COVID hit. And they came to us and they said, please, can we go back to the way we were, please? And we said, you guys, we can't. We've come so far. If we go backwards, it's going to take another 2-3 years to go forward. You guys can do it. And kudos to our staff. They did it through COVID, teaching new curriculum, new grade levels, and they did it. And so
And they did it with a lot of grace.
they really did.
All throughout the pandemic, our staff always had high morale. They worked together, and we always kept telling them how very appreciative we were that we didn't have problems on our campus, that the teachers continued to try to implement best practices and take on new things during a time when they were forced to take on more new things. So it was very overwhelming, but they did it with a lot of patience and grace, and we are forever appreciative.
So yes, and there are steps that we do in a PLC. So in the next slide, there's Tim Brown that we had our picture taken with, and we just love him. We had to, in order to go from teaching to learning, we needed to structure a professional learning time. And we had to cut an hour out of our schedule somewhere in the week to meet with teachers. And at first it started, when we were going to school, some of you remember we went to school till 4 o'clock. So we had a late start Wednesday. And so from 7 to 8, the teachers would meet for an hour in the morning before students arrived on campus. And then our hours went down to 3. So now every Wednesday from 3:30 to 4:30, it's PLC time. And we really guard that time. We don't schedule any meetings. I ask our teachers to please not schedule doctor's appointments because this is a very, very important time to get together with your peers, to discuss instruction, to discuss data, to work on those common assessments. This is the time to talk about what is your instruction going to look like the next week, next month. Very important time. So we guard that. And Nicole knows that. She hears it every year. We guard it. We can't do anything during that time. Okay, the next thing is the reteach. So what we did is we had to find 30 minutes in our daily schedule to provide reteach and enrich. We call it CAT, Cougar Academic Time. And those 30 minutes, our students are either in intervention for English and math, or they are in enrichment. Okay? And every teacher on campus has either an intervention class and enrichment. And the intervention classes, they're working on those skills for that week. And the teachers have been given assessments so they know exactly where those students need to be. And so we invite students to those interventions that need that extra help. Okay? The next thing we did is we needed to have collaborative teams. We really needed to go from, and again, this was something we waited. We didn't tell them. They knew this was the next move. We needed to get our teams together where they were talking about instruction. We had to get our conversations away from discussing things that were out of our control. And we needed to talk about things that we had control over. And we have control over instruction, and we have control over assessments. And so what we did is 2 summers ago, I moved my entire campus around. Every teacher but 7, my elective teachers were able to stay, switched to another classroom, different classroom. And now our pods, instead of having 6th grade pod, 7th grade pod, I have a math pod, an English pod, I have a science pod, social studies pod. And so in that pod, we have our 3 gen ed teachers, we have our title math teacher, and we have the special ed teacher. We felt it was important to get special ed moved over there and start integrating them in with our gen ed to have those conversations. And with that, do you want
I have one thing I
Okay.
have to say. At this point, we're going to be letting our guiding coalition to walk you through it, but I wanted to say, because I'm not gonna be a part of this next year, I am retiring next year. And I've been in the district for 23 years. Would love to say that I've enjoyed every single moment of it. Not quite true, but I have loved my career. And I am very thankful for Chino Valley Unified School District. But one of the highlights of my career, 28 years in education, has been the last couple of years of watching these teachers come together. And in all of the time I've been here, and I think you can attest to this too, when was the last time you saw a group of teachers come to you and say, hey, this is gonna be hard work for us, but it is something this is what's best for kids and we want to do it. So to have a team of teachers come and say, and they really are speaking on behalf of the entire staff, because the entire staff has bought into this. And my one regret is that I am leaving before I feel like the process is done. So although Julie and I have built a really good climate and culture and a staff that I know can implement this well, I am sad that I'm not going to be here to see it. But I really hope that you guys get to watch them and Heritage Middle School grow over the next couple of years, because it's going to be outstanding what they're doing here. And that's what I have to say about it.
Very good, Laura. The next slide. We are going to bring up Sarah Jones and Joy Efron.
Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Joy.
I'm Sarah.
Yes. So a lot of the stuff I have to share is kind of just like supporting what Julie and Laura just shared, but really to have a successful PLC school, collaboration is everything. When I started, we were still singletons, and I was just the 8th grade English teacher. And really seeing the process in my early career has been amazing. I've learned so much from my coworkers, my peers, and really focusing on what can we do best for our students. We are teachers because we want every student to learn and be successful. And that is what all of our teams are doing. We have our weekly meetings. We look at our standards. We have been working on breaking them down into our specific targets to get us ready for this next step we are going to take. And having rubrics so students are really clear on what they're learning. What is the purpose? What is the goal? Every student should be in class knowing, why are we doing this? And again, all of our teams are working together to have this information and to have this set for students. And being able to share ideas, and really, like, if something didn't work quite right, really having those open conversations. I feel like at our school, no matter what teacher, it's an open door policy. I can go in and talk with a social studies teacher, my English peers. Just it really is always open conversations and being able to learn from one another. As teachers, we are constant learners, and I know that's why I love teaching. I love learning new things, and this process has just allowed me to grow so much, and it's really, really exciting.
Okay, and then I wanted to talk a bit more on the deconstructed standards and targets. So when I came on to the staff 3 years ago, I was, like you said, just this 8th grade science teacher, and that was my first year teaching. I was taking the state standards the way they were written and like figuring out how to teach them all on my own, right? And that's tough, right? But when I was able to finally work as a team during our PLC times during the last school year, we got a chance to break down the science standards to a degree where it's like, okay, we've got the standards, we have all the targets that the kids have to achieve in order to prove that they master it. We've got all the vocab, we've got characteristics of mastery. And when you put all that together, it wasn't an immense amount of work. But what's really useful coming from this is this year when we had a new teacher on in our team, a new science teacher join us, she didn't have to have the same experience as I did where she was like, well, these are the state standards, I don't really know what I'm doing here. We were able to give her these deconstructed standards that we had gone through and spent all this time on, and she was able to be like, oh, so I have to teach this, these are the parts of it, this is the associated vocabulary, and it really clarified for us, like, and helped us pare down what we need to be teaching instead of being like, in this direction or in that direction, but it's like, no, these are the specific things that work for that standard according to the state. So taking that time to work on those deconstructed standards helped us to move along in this process. But we're not done yet. So I want to pass it on to the next person.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Makes me want to go back to school.
Yeah.
Sounds exciting.
Thank you, ladies.
Hello, I'm Sarah Vitus, and I teach 6th grade math over at Heritage. I've been there 5 years and I love it. Love to see that next slide. It would also help me connect what I'm talking about. But that's how I talk to people. So 6th grade is full of change for so many reasons. Of course, that's a long time ago for us, but 5th grade becoming 6th grade is about change. Being a math teacher, I'm going to give them a heavy load. I want them to find it as a reachable load. I want them to find them as reachable targets. When we use standard-based reporting, we're not just saying an averaged out grade, an averaged out whatever. What are we supposed to teach? What are they getting taught? We put it in a student-friendly language so that the parents don't have an emotion about the report card, but have information about the report card, okay? So that there's transparency in what we're doing, what the student should be learning, that they're not just filling in a box and saying, hey, we're here, but that they're really learning something. The way that we write it, the way that we teach it, transparency, communication. We want to bring all of that together, not just in good ideas and, lots of meetings. We want to make it something where they don't have to pick up the phone to figure out what's going on in their school or in their kid's classroom. We can look at the report and we can see, where are you successful? Where do you need help? What are you doing about that? And the ownership goes to the student as well as the teacher. The responsibility is with the relationship that we've built, that they know that they can reach these goals. We've set out paths for them to go and be successful. I want to be a part of that team. I want to have that kind of communication with my parents so that they know everything I want their kids to know. And I also want my kids to know how to get there. And here's our esteemed Leanne Waller.
Do you want the next slide?
Yes, please.
So what our next big step, now that you've heard all of the work that we've done so far, our next big step that we're taking next year is to bring standards-based reporting to the community and to bring it into the homes of our families in Chino Valley. So standards-based reporting is the way that we would convey all the good stuff that you hear happening and that makes you want to go back to school. We can bring a piece of that to you. So we have standards-based reporting as our way to communicate with families next year. There is a full sample of a standards-based report card in your board packet. It is this paper. But what you see on the screen here is just a snippet of a standards-based report card. Standards-based report cards look significantly different than a traditional report card. There are two major differences. First, instead of just one overall averaged grade per class, proficiency scores are given for each standard or skill taught in a subject area. So for example, on this math report card up here, you can see on the standards-based side, there is, you can see a list of all of the topics that were studied in this case, mathematics for Q1. The proficiency scores that you see listed next to each standard indicate that this student has mastered the content that has received a score of 3 next to it. So there are several topics in Q1 that this student is proficient in, has gained grade level mastery of, and those are all the ones that have a 3 listed next to it. The scores or the content that has a score of 2 listed next to it means that this student has not quite yet mastered at grade level proficiency in that content area.
May I ask real quick?
Of course.
1 to 4, 1 being good, 1 being bad. 1
being not proficient,
Okay,
4 being exceeding highly proficient beyond grade level. And great question. So on the standards-based report card side, you can see that this is much more informative than on the traditional side, where there's just one overall averaged score for an entire quarter. It gives almost no information about what was studied in the classroom for 9 weeks. On the standards-based side, there is clear information, clear communication about what the student learned and still needs more additional practice and time on for teachers, students, and parents to be able to see. The second major difference that is not on this slide, but is on the sample if you flip to the back, is that work habits and classroom behavior are reported separately from proficiency. Meaning that that the way a student is in class is not an effect on their grade that is reporting what they learned.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So, as a parent,
Mhm.
when I look at this, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little overwhelming.
Sure.
Like, I wanna look and go, okay, you're not doing good here, you are doing good here. So when I look at this, will you give like an average? So we're looking at mathematics.
Sure.
I can see what they're good in and what they're, struggling in, but is there an average?
There would not be one overall grade for the class. Instead, what we're looking to do is change the conversation about, it's not that you're good at math or bad at math. There are parts of math that you are great at and parts that you still need help on. We're changing the conversation about learning to recognize that everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And that's what standards-based learning and assessing and reporting is all about. And so as a parent myself, when I look at the one on the right, I can see, I know that my child is going to need some more help in defining a number sentence, and that's something I can have a conversation with my child about, with the teacher about, and I know exactly how to help instead of just to say, well, you need to do better in math.
But let me follow up on that if I could. So you're saying at the end of the quarter or the end of the school year, there is no single numeric grade given to the student? I can, what you're showing there is excellent. I understand exactly what you're saying. But at no point will a student, for their GPA, get a single numeric grade for that class?
So in middle school, middle school doesn't have a transcript, so there is no GPA in middle school. And so, no, because the GPA isn't an item that's needed at middle school. It's not part of the process.
So basically, they'll get 4 of these a year, or parents will get 4 of these a year,
Correct,
like that.
correct. And including an ongoing record on the computer if they choose.
Well, yeah, I understand you'll be keeping that on a regular basis, but at the end of the quarter, they will get a grade, numeric number for each of those categories, 0 through 4.
Correct.
I have a question.
Sure.
In our example, it shows, that the behavior, only is showing up like in T3 or.
Yes.
Yeah. So we wouldn't know in advance if our child is not showing respect or what?
This
is just a sample.
Very
Okay.
sample.
So they just didn't put it in
Yeah,
I just wondered.
T1, T2.
they just were giving it an example of
I'm not sure
how
why
it
they
can
did it
work.
that way.
and- Yeah.
No, that is communicated.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Probably more frequently than
Yeah.
just a couple times a year.
Making some phone calls.
I have a question. How do you feel the transition's gonna be from middle school to high school with this grading system now?
We anticipate this creating independent, strong learners. These students are going to develop ownership over their learning, so much so that they can advocate for themselves when they get to high school and change the conversation, not from how do I get a good grade, but how do I learn? And learning in itself takes care of any kind of numerical grade. They can approach a teacher and say, what is it that I need to do to improve to, hit whatever goal it is that they have in any class, no matter how it's graded or how it's assessed. So we anticipate sending extremely independent learners onto high school in whichever venue they choose.
And I want to make it clear that there is no intent Heidi's shaking her head as well. There is no intent of ever doing this at the high school. It's just not possible because of the number of things that are dependent on a GPA and those letter grades at the high school level. But it's appropriate at the middle school, but not appropriate at the high school.
Can I ask the cynical question?
Of course.
I'm hearing what you're saying as far as the students taking this information with them to the next year in the high school. I can see the average and above average student being very happy to have that. I can see the below average and non-performing student never wanted to talk about this ever again because that then has put a black mark on him. How do you deal with that?
I can ask, I'd like to answer that question.
Oh.
Okay, I mean, genuinely, like if a kid's not doing well, they're getting D's and F's. What does that do to their self-esteem? F's over and over and over again. With this, that, like for this child here, they can say, okay, I'm not good at defining a number sentence or solving number sentences that have brackets, but I can solve number sentences that have brackets. So it alleviates, like, I don't have to do, all of math is not bad. It's these few areas that aren't bad. And I can speak to that specifically. My daughter gets I get a lot of mileage out of my daughter, but she got a C in math all throughout her middle school years. And it was all because of retakes. By the time she was done, she really knew nothing. And it was, I mean, I didn't know what she knew and what she didn't know. So I couldn't help her specifically. It's like, okay, we're gonna do math. Where do you start? If you know that she's not functioning well in math, where do I start? Do I start back at addition? Well, she may know addition. Do I start at multiplication, long division? All of that. This tells me exactly, as a teacher, as a parent, and as a student, that all of it is not bad. There's some things that I'm really good at, and that will bolster their confidence. But just getting an F over and over and over again, it's demoralizing. And we don't want that for our students. We want to build their confidence. And with that, they need to recognize that everybody has strengths, and this program allows that.
Now, do you have one-on-one reviews with particularly those students?
That's
so
a
that
good
they
question,
Very
so
good
why don't you
question.
talk about advising?
We have several times throughout our day, not only during class time, but we have an advisory time built into our day right at the beginning of the day, where a teacher can go over grades and proficiency scores with our students, and have exactly the conversation that Mrs. Hunter just said. All of math is not bad. All of reading is not bad. You have this area that you've already mastered. Focus your time here. And then, as Mrs. Bryce talked about before, we have our CAT time, Cougar Academic Time, which is our intervention time. So the time when students are invited to that time, a specific skill is picked, and a group of students that are struggling with that skill, that's what they come and work on
How frequently does that occur?
daily.
Every day.
And I'm gonna tell you,
Is
the
cat
parent
time, I'm
of
sorry.
cat time, what I hear back from my own daughter, she loves the cat time because she can go and get the help that she needs from wherever she's struggling. So I really appreciate the cat time. I think it works really great.
Is cat time by invitation only? Is it limited the number of students that can be in there, or?
Well, it changes, and we change the list all the time. It's by invitation of skill. So it's today, this skill with this teacher is doing this skill, this teacher is doing this skill. So we can reach a tremendous amount of students on any given day, but we focus it by skill, not necessarily by number of students.
Right, and I think it's important too, sometimes as students learn, may not be able to learn the concept from Leanne by the way she's teaching it, but during that collaboration time throughout the week, when they're sharing that data, she'll see that my kids are doing quite well on it and hers are not. So she would say, her question to me is, what are you doing? Because I need to do that to help my kids. Can I send my kids to you during cat time? Because how I'm teaching it, they may get it.
Oh, that's good.
So I, when I look at this, I really like it, but I do wish that I could look at like an average. Like the more that I look at this, I kind of wish that I knew that I could look at it and go, okay, here's where you need to work on, here's where you're excelling. But what I kind of feel like as a parent, I'm like, all right, well, where are they sitting? Like, and
Well, I think that'll
I
be
have-
answered.
I was just,
okay.
I'm ready. I believe that the next portion of what we're going to show will be very informative and help with your question. Are there any other questions about what the report card looks like? Because our next portion is more in depth about how we get to, like, what a 2 means, what a 3 means, and how we get there. Okay.
Go ahead, John, next slide.
Hello, I'm Brian Parnell. I've taught middle school math for 12 years now at HMS. I'm super excited for these changes, because especially in math, kids really do make up their minds in middle school if it's for me or if it's not for me. And a lot of it comes because of that average number. I'm a C student, I'm a D student, I'm a B, and really any letter, there's anxiety to it. And so I'm really excited to have that spectrum of knowledge, being able to be a little more itemized, and so every kid can see their strengths and their weaknesses. And so this is the video that I was in charge of making. This is for the stakeholders. It's already on our Facebook page. It can be on our school websites, on our Google Classrooms. This is for students and parents and everybody else to see what we're doing and why we do it. So it's about 5 or 6 minutes long. And so I hope it answers a lot of those existing questions, but we would love your feedback.
Great.
Yes. I'll need that sound up.
You need some.
Just for our learners. Let me explain a bit about why our grading will look different in the upcoming year. At all grade levels, we are dedicated to standards-based instruction. We want to ensure that students, parents, and guardians receive standards-based reporting to better reflect this data. One large part of this evolution will be replacing the traditional letter grades. The teachers of HMS share a commitment to provide valuable feedback of our instruction for our students and our parents and guardians. Like any other type of assessment, we believe more specific and relevant feedback is the most effective way of reporting information for every child, and now in every subject. A few examples of how standards-based reporting will provide better feedback for teachers and instruction include more specific data for each student in each class. Students' current and future instructors and interventionists will know where each child has demonstrated proficiency or areas that need some extra help. This reporting will also drive instruction for reteaching and enrichment opportunities in the classroom. Our new standards-based reporting will also be providing students with more quality information. Feedback will be much more detailed, their learning targets separated and individually assessed. A unified and consistent messaging of tracking progress and proficiency helps students take ownership of learning and drives deeper conversations. Standards-based reporting better displays each student's spectrum of learning, highlighting strengths and aptitudes. With multiple attempts to demonstrate growth and grade level proficiencies, students develop the habit of a growth mindset. The standards-based reporting coming home to parents and guardians will also provide much more information about their child's progress in school. Each class will provide an easy-to-understand list of learning targets with essential standards being assessed individually. Detailed reports will have current levels of proficiency shown on a 4-point scale, so parents and guardians know exactly what skills their child has mastered and which are still being developed. The standards-based reporting format will be consistent across campus, including progress and mastery of skills in elective classes. Parents and guardians can see a more transparent rubric scoring of state standards. Standards-based reporting is not simply replacing letters with numbers. It involves many other behind-the-scenes enhancements. In traditional grading practices, students were often scored on compliance of completion. Many students would see lower than expected overall grades as low grades earned during learning created negative impacts on overall averaging. With standards-based reporting, a student's learning pace does not negatively impact the semester scores. Students' learning activities are used as feedback and direction for learning as well as teaching. Multiple attempts are given to demonstrate proficiency. Student growth, trends, and maintenance of learning targets are more clearly communicated. For each learning target, students will earn a score from 1 to 4, as seen here. Criteria is assessed by rubrics that are utilized with the curriculums used in classrooms. Students' first attempts at demonstrating grade level proficiencies may initially fall on the left side of the scale, with each class typically focusing on 3 to 8 essential standards per semester. Classes will provide many adaptations and reteach opportunities in the teach, learn, assess cycle. Along with this new reporting system, we acknowledge that this format is new to many. On all standards-based reports that come home, we will be attaching a key, such as this one here, to help define each child's present levels of proficiency for each learning target in each class. Let's take a look at an example of a difference between the old and new. In the past, a letter grade did little to explain a student's true learning. The right side shows all targets assessed and exactly where on the 4-point scale they currently are. In this way, students, teachers, parents, and guardians alike can see what has been demonstrated and what areas may need attention. Here at HMS, we've been working hard to ensure we all are ready to change the conversations about student learning. Middle school is such a valuable time for students to understand how learning happens and to develop patterns of perseverance and success. As your partners in learning, we are here for any and all questions along the way. Always feel free to reach out to us for any clarification, details, or additional resources. We look forward to working together to create a more comprehensive grading system that continues to benefit our students today and in the future.
So that's what we have, what we'd like to post. The colors do show up better when it's not on the projector. There's some dark spots there.
Created using Powtoon.
That's program teachers get to. So we hope that provides a little more clarity to what we're doing and what we're trying to show our kids as they are learning how to learn, before they hit high school. It's about the GPAs and some of those unavoidable cumulative scores. In middle school, we really want them to be focused on learning the tasks at hand. And so, I would like to introduce Mrs. Davis and Svea Owens up here to give their kind of testimonies here. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Rachel Davis. I teach 7th and 8th grade social studies, and it is a pleasure to be up here to offer the teacher perspective. I have been at Heritage Middle School for 17 years, and I've seen a lot of change, and this is the best one I have experienced in the 17 years that I've been here, so I am fully in support of it. And I just want to give an example of something that was an eye-opener to me. In January, all of the teachers were to present to the coalition team essential standards broken into targets, and then with that we create rubrics. And then with these rubrics we create an assessment and a lesson. And so I wanted some data to present with my essential standards to the coalition board. So I presented this lesson to my students a few days before. And in grading these essays, using the rubric that I created, I noticed that there weren't, one of the things that was asked in the target was for there to be some kind of information from the author written in there. And so it wasn't. There was no any kind of argumentative feedback in the writings. And so I asked the students, why was this not put in any kind of any cited information? And they said that they really didn't know how to include that in the writing, but it was in my rubric. And so what I do now is when I write a rubric, I present it to my students and we go over the rubric first in case there's any questions they can ask at that time. And also, I've used this since then on a brochure that we created, or they created, and they were able to look at the rubric and create their brochure by looking at the rubric. And they knew before they even turned in the brochure what their grade would be by looking at what was expected. And so just this way, this change that we are making at Heritage, I think really provides an opportunity for teachers to really focus on learning instead of teaching. And that is a huge change that I have experienced in my 17 years here at Heritage. So it's a privilege to be a part of this team. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Bear with me, I don't do public speaking. So the first thing, and Julie mentioned it earlier, is change. It's not fun, but I feel like it's necessary. As a parent, I'm active in my kids' education, but I also believe they are responsible for their education. I struggled with my daughter last year. She's not at Heritage yet. She is finishing out at Del Rio this year. But last year we had a really rough year, and I've never had problems with her. She's always been an achieving student, A student. Last year we struggled, and I could not figure out why. And trying to communicate with teachers, trying to figure out where the disconnect is and everything, it was a little harder. I really like this because I can look at it and I can see, okay, this is why she's struggling. Like, she's coming home with a grade that's not her. It's not her characteristic to have that grade. But with this, I can actually look and see, like, okay, this is where you're struggling. This is where you need help. I can then try and help her. I can talk to her teachers and see what we can do. I also like that they give them the rubric, because then they know what's expected of them. They have it all laid out for them. They know exactly what's expected. So then, they can't use that excuse, well, I didn't know. Well, you did. You were given it. You were given it. And so you can't use that excuse. My child's number one excuse, well, I didn't know. I didn't know. You do. You can't tell me that. I like that this gives it holds everyone accountable involved. It holds the teachers accountable, it holds the students accountable, and it holds the parents accountable. Because we can no longer say, well, we don't understand why our children are struggling, because they're giving us that information. They're telling us exactly what they're learning, where they're struggling, where they're excelling. And it's total transparency. Like, it really is. And I'm really a big fan of communication. I love communication. I feel like that's, the way to make everything work. And so this is just huge that we're able to open that line of communication. I do struggle with, like Annie was saying, seeing all of the numbers next to the tasks that they're supposed to be learning versus that grade, because my daughter brings home a report card, and if it says A or C, I'm like, whoa, you have a C, what's going on? I can't necessarily do that when I'm looking at all those numbers, but I can understand more, this is where she's struggling. This is, okay, so this is something we need to work on. If there's a 1 on there, I know she really needs help. If she's getting 2s, I know she needs a little more attention. If she's getting 3s and 4s, I know she's doing great. And so it's retraining our minds to look at more information being given than just seeing, hey, they came home with an A grade. I don't have to worry about it. I still would like to know. I had a progress report come home last quarter, and she had a A in science, and then she brings home her report card and she has a C, and she has no clue why. And I have no clue why. And so with this new system, she's going to bring that report card home, and I'm going to see exactly where she struggled. I'm going to see what caused that grade to go from an A to a C, but it won't be letter grades anymore. But I'll see where she's at with that progress report, and then where she's ending. I think that there's going to be a lot of learning curves on the community's part. I think that we all just kind of need to, push through, because in order to change in order to improve the children's education and make sure that they're actually retaining and, learning these things, we need to do something different because obviously there's a disconnect. Arizona is one of the lowest states in education, and there's a reason for it. And I don't think that it's anyone's fault, but I think that what Heritage is trying to do is a great step in that direction. And I know we can't do it at the high school, I completely understand, but I would love to see this at the other schools. My twins are going into Del Rio in 2 years. I would love to see it there. I think it would be so beneficial because even then you get into 5th grade and you're starting to move classes. So then I have a hard time now trying to keep track who my daughter has for what class. So I don't know necessarily who to reach out to all the time. But with this stuff, obviously you have more information, so you kind of know, and then if you need to reach out, you can. So I don't know if I have anything else, but I'm a fan, and I think that's why they asked me to come. But I think that the biggest thing is it's opening that line of communication. And I think it's gonna be really great. Like I said, there's gonna be some learning curves, but I think that overall, this is an awesome step towards the future in education, especially for our district. Thank you.
Hi, hello, my name is Annika Van Orden, and I'm speaking to you as the athletic director at Heritage. And one of the things that came up was, how is switching from traditional grading to a standards-based reporting going to affect eligibility for our athletes? And it's kind of uncharted water because the districts around us are either, switching kind of at the same time. There's not a lot to base it off of. But we talked about as a group kind of what would be most fair to the students. And I think the consensus was that by doing eligibility the way that I'm going to talk to you about, it would actually make more kids eligible than are currently eligible. Because of the growth mindset, they can still participate in sports even if they're not proficient or exceeding proficiency, but they're approaching proficiency or maybe minimally proficient, but just in some areas. And so the way that we decided to phrase it was students are eligible for sports as long as they have one or fewer minimally proficient scores per class. And so John talked about there's 7 classes. And if they have a 1 in math, maybe that standard was just introduced. So they're gonna be minimally proficient because it's new. So can we really say if that kid has 1 in one class that they can't do sports? That wouldn't be fair. So we said if they had a 1, they can have 1 in all 7 classes and still play sports because they're going to have to get there. They're going to have to start somewhere. Some of the teachers are going to be, or in content areas, are going to be introducing standards at semester, where others will introduce them at the beginning of the year. And so it depends on the season. The seasons don't always correlate with the quarters. And so we felt this would be the most fair. A student can still start or try out for a sport with minimally proficient scores, but they must meet eligibility requirements by the first eligibility check, or they may be dismissed from the team. The thought process here was that every season has several weeks of practice before the games start. So they have a good chunk of time to become proficient or work on those areas where maybe they were struggling before the competitions start. And it's really, Ms. Weller talked about during advisory, we would have advisory teachers checking grades, and we've talked about a process for next year where those kids are really holding themselves accountable and learning how to monitor their own grades with their advisory teachers' support and help and guidance. And so that's where we're at with that. Like I said before, all of the seasons have different start dates. Wrestling goes through 3 quarters. Volleyball is just the first quarter. And so the dates for the eligibility checks will be included on those respective sports schedules. So we have a little bit of flexibility here to make sure that it's fair for the kids, especially in our first year of implementing. Do you have questions for me?
You answered my question. Literally have it written down.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to thank the teachers and parents and, for joining us tonight. And in closing, I just want to say that going through all that training for the past 6-7 years, I kept hearing the word transformation. And it really didn't click. What transformation are we going to see? And I have to tell you, a couple weeks ago, Laura and I, we were in a coalition meeting. And I've been sitting there listening to these educators have this conversation that I've never heard educators have before. And I sat there and I thought, this is the transformation they were talking about, is our educators are transforming from just focusing on their instruction, but focusing on the learning of the child. What does that child need to be successful? And it's very, I wanted to cry, and I look over at Laura, and I think she did wipe a tear off, because we were both thinking the same thing. It's amazing. It is amazing what this group of teachers, and I'm including all my teachers, all 30, what the work they've put into this, their dedication to it, and their goal to grow independent learners. You know, when we started this years ago, I remember telling my staff when I was introducing it, that our goal is to, when a child steps foot on our campus, that they know why they're there. Their purpose is to learn. And that's our goal. And another goal is that our teachers know and that our students know that all students are capable of learning. And they just aren't ours. I'm not a special ed teacher, I only worry about my special ed kids. I'm not a math teacher, I only worry about my math kids. Those students belong to every one of us on that campus. Every one of us. We're all responsible for them and their learning. And that's the goal of this. And I mentioned Richard before, so I'm gonna, he mentioned this, and then this really talks about my staff. He says the improvement of any school depends on the commitment and persistence of the educators within it. And that is so true. And that's what we're witnessing at Heritage Middle School. So I'm here to ask, we are here to ask for your vote to give us this opportunity to go take the next step in our PLC journey. Because we're ready to do it. It will be hard next year. It's one reason I decided to stay and not retire, is I want to help them take this next step. I want to be there for this next tough year. It's going to be hard, but we are, and this is something that we have not mentioned, we have been inviting parents to our site council meetings, and that's how Savea got involved. We're inviting 15 to 20 parents at every month, and we're averaging 6 to 7 first came. Last month, we only had about 3 that came, but March 29th is our next site council meeting, and I invite you to join us. It's March 29th at 3:30, and we will be personally inviting more parents because we want our parents to be prepared for this, because it is going to be different. They grew up when we grew up. They're used to seeing those letter grades. They're not used to seeing that report card that you have in front of you. So we want to prepare them for it. But I am here to stand and tell you that I'm surrounded by experts, and I couldn't ask for a better group. They're dedicated to this, and they will do a phenomenal job with it.
I have a question. Are you, as a parent, again, are you guys prepared to, there's gonna be some backlash.
We are.
I just want to make sure that that you guys are.
We're prepared.
We're used to backlash.
Yeah. You know what? You want to see my back?
We're experts on black backlash.
I really like this. Like I said, I think it's really great. I think that I like the idea that I can see where my kid is excelling and where they're struggling too, so.
Peter or Penny, comments or questions?
I really love it. Yeah.
I'm excited to see
Yeah.
it be implemented.
I had a
That's the real
question.
crisis, or question.
I had questions, but they were all answered.
Thank you.
However, I do have some comments. They're all positive, I promise. promise you. I'm gonna date myself here real quick. When my older children were in another district in another town, 25-ish years ago, when standard-based grading first came out, when Ames first came out, our wonderful Ames, I was the president of our PTO, and I was completely, adamantly against it. At that time, it was just simply, they were either meeting, exceeding, or what was the other one? Approaching or, right. You didn't know what they were doing. And I, like Annie was saying, you wanna know where your kids are. With this, I would know where they were, and I would support this. Like Mrs. Hunter, I use my child a lot in examples.
They're a lot of fun.
My junior in high school, like Leanne said, information over emotion. Every report card is an emotional time in our household, an incredibly emotional time in our household. He has struggled since grade school. He is not a good learner. He does not want to learn. He's a good kid, just not a good learner. Had this been in process, or had this been part of his middle school year, I'm pretty certain we would not have emotion every report card. And I'm a little disappointed, for me personally. And if I can alleviate that emotion from other high school parents coming into high school, then that's what my duty is to do. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? You do have some papers in front of you. You have the pamphlet of what a PLC, professional learning community is. Our parent guide, if you read this is a draft. So if you're reading through this and you don't understand something, or you think we can say it clearer, or you think we need to add something else to it, please let us know, because that's what we're at our site council meetings. We pass this out and ask our parents to please give us their advice on it and let us know if there's anything we can improve on, okay? Then this is a sample. So this is all, we're able to edit this whole thing. So we will edit it to make it that follows what we're doing. So we do have a timeline in front of you, and we are working on that timeline. I'll tell you, we're very busy. The coalition team, we've been meeting at least once a week, every day after school. They have put a lot of work into this. Next, we realized we're gonna hire teachers that do not have the experience with standard-based reporting. So we are making a pamphlet, a booklet, and going to work through the training that they will need to be successful, okay? So we do realize that we do have some hurdles in front of us, but I think we're ready, and I think that we can do it. And it is going to be a tough year.
One more question. So I realize you're inviting parents to site council meetings. Will you be having any sort of community-wide meeting for those parents that have not been invited?
Yes, we do. And we'll do those. We thought we would do those more at the end of July and August when school starts. So all this will be fresh in their mind when school starts.
With the exception of fifth grade.
Fifth grade's going to see this in May.
Picture? You guys good? Anything else? No.
Just one technical thing.
Yes, please.
One of the things that Mrs. Bryce worked on is we had a regulation, which is not a policy, it's a regulation, in the book, in our policy book, that described how the middle school should be grading with the A, B, C, D, and F. So part of the change would require a change to the regulation, which is the yellow, what the yellow shows. And regulations do not need 2 readings, unlike a policy. So this should be part of the motion, is to change the regulation IKA-R.
Okay.
Which is it's in the, yeah, I just wanted to make sure you understood where that kind of fit in.
And it's just changing the grade scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it one more time. I truly believe they're going to learn so much more.
Thank you.
All right, looks like I'll make a motion of approval of Heritage Middle School standard-based report card, including regulation IKA-R.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Julie, just one final comment. Thank you, I now understand all this stuff.
We are adjourned. See you next month. I have to.